what we're going to be going through here is the sum of the years depreciation method, and we're going to be going through a typical problem here and looking at the mechanics and how we determine our depreciation using this method. So the first thing we have here is, let's look at our problem here. We have a purchase here of equipment. We have a purchase cost here of $304,000, service life of 8 years, salvage value here of $16,000. That's at the end of the 8 years here. And the date of purchase here is going to be on 10/1 or October 1st of year 20x1. So what we're dealing with here is a partial period here to determine our depreciation, and it's really a two-step process here. So the first thing we have to do is we have to determine our depreciation here based on our full year depreciation based on the first day of the fiscal year here, because the fiscal year here we're using for this company here is from January 1st through December 1st. So this is what we'd have to do here for step one. And what we have is we have to develop our depreciation chart here. We got our depreciation base. That's what we're going to be depreciating here. And then we're going to have some remaining life here, depreciation fraction. We have to develop that here. And then from that, we can determine our depreciation expense and our book value here at the end of the year. So the first thing, let's look at this depreciation base here. Now, what that is the cost less the salvage value. So we had a cost here of $304,000 less the salvage value here of $16,000 gives us our depreciation base here of $288,000. So the sum of this year's method here requires including subtracting out our salvage value here from our initial cost. So okay, we've got our depreciation base here, $288,000. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to determine this, let's go and look at it, this depreciation fraction here, and this is what we're going to be multiplying times our depreciation base to determine our depreciation expense. So what we first have to do is we have to determine the sum of the years here. This is why we called it this sum of the years method here. And that is going to be the total sum of the years here that we have to add up for our total life here. So we start at 8 years, 7 years, 6 years, and sum those up here. Our total sum of the years here for our life of depreciation happens to be 36 here, 36 years. Now we can calculate that more easily here just by using this simple equation here, where n equals our number of years, and in this case a number of years here, the life here of the asset here, and that was 8 years, so we would take n, and the equation here is n times the quantity here, n plus 1 divided by 2. So n, number of years, 8 here, times n plus 1 would be 9. So we get a quantity here, 8 times 9 is 72. Divide that by 2, and we're going to come up with 36 years here. So this is going to be our denominator here in our depreciation fraction here, 36. And now this is where our depreciation fraction here that we use to multiply times the base. All we do is we take the remaining life, and this say for year 1 here we had 8 years remaining life, so we take 8 years here divided by the 36, the sum of the years here, and that fractional amount we'll take times our depreciation base here of $288,000, and then we're going to get our depreciation expense here at the end of year 1 here of $64,000. Now just for our book value here at the end of the year, now we started out with our cost here of $304,000, so we would just subtract our first year's depreciation, $64,000, from the $304,000. We're going to come up with the book value at the end of year 1 here of $240,000. Now we'll just continue on in the same fashion for each of the next years here. And just looking again, let's look at year 2 here, remaining life here of 7 years here. That would be our fractional numerator amount here, 7 divided by our total sum of the years here, 36. Take that fractional amount times the depreciation base. You're going to come up with your depreciation expense here at the end of the second year, and subtract that here from the beginning. Book value here, in this case it was $240,000 less $56,000, gives us our end of the year here book value here at the end of year $284,000. So what we've done here with this sum of the years depreciation method here, what we have is a decreasing depreciation charge. And one thing we have to note here, in this case we got our 8th year here, and our book value here at the end of 8 years is $16,000. So that hasn't been depreciated yet. That's our salvage value. So this is our salvage value here of $16,000. All right, that takes care of step 1 here. So let's go down and let's look at what we would do here to step 2 here to determine our partial period depreciation. Remember, this piece of equipment here was purchased here on 10/1 of 20x1. So what we have to do is we have to prorate our depreciation expense between periods here, because what we're going to have here is we're going to be moving here from year 1 up through year 8. So I'm just going to show here 3 years here. You get the idea how we do our partial period calculation here. So on 10/1 20x1, there would be 3 months left here: October, November, and December. 3 months here in the year, and a total of 12 months. So our fractional amount that we'd be depreciating here for 20x1 is simply 3 divided by 12, or 25%. Now the remainder here of our depreciation would be of the total 1 year that we're accounting for here. The next would be the 9 months that is remaining in the next year here, because we're moving from 10/1 of 20x1 to 10/1 20x2 and so forth. We're always going back here to our October 1st base here. So the next year's amount here would be 9. We have 9 months here. The difference between 3 months here used up in 20x1. So 9 months here in 20x2 divided by 12 months gives us 75%. So that's our 9 months here in 20x2. So what we do here is I just set up a chart here for each year: 20x1, 20x2, and 20x3. And this is convenient here when you're trying to determine your total full depreciation for each year here. So we start with year 1 here, depreciation here of $64,000. Now remember, that's our full year's depreciation based on the first day of the fiscal year here of January 1st here of each year. And we have to divide this up here based on our 10/1 or October 1st date here. So for 20x1 here, we have 25% or 3/12 here of the $64,000. That's plain enough here to see. 25% here is $64,000. Total depreciation for the year gives us $16,000 here, 20x1. Now the remaining here, the next 9 months, or 75% of it, would go to 20x2 here of this depreciation based on our partial period here. So 75% times the $64,000 depreciation amount here gives us, again, 75% times 64,000 gives us total amount here of $48,000. All right, so we've taken care of the first full year here of this partial between these partial periods. We divided it up here between 20x1 and 20x2. Now the same pattern here goes for between 20x2 and 20x3 when we're stepping here from October 1st 20x2 to October 1st here 20x3. So our full year's depreciation here based on our beginning of the year and our first day fiscal period was $56,000. So again, just taking 25% here of the $56,000 here at 20x2 gives us $14,000 here. And then for 20x3, they're going to get a charge here for 75% here times $56,000 here gives us $42,000. Now you can see the pattern, or you can just look at the pattern here, see how we have it laid out here when you're overlapping these partial periods here. Now looking at year 3 here, our $48,000 was our full year's depreciation as of January 1st. So 25% of it here would go for 20x3. 25% goes times the 48,000 here gives us $12,000. Now we would continue on this pattern all through 20x4, 20x5, and until we get this through all our 8 years depreciation. So just looking here on how we would determine our depreciation amounts, well, it's pretty self-evident here. You take 20x1, we were charged here $16,000, so our total amount here for 20x1 would be $16,000. For 20x2, well, you're going to get this $48,000 amount here plus your $14,000 gives your total amount here of $62,000. For 20x3, total, you start out with your $42,000 here plus your $12,000 gives you $54,000. So you can see how we divided everything up here for this partial period depreciation, and how this little table here is convenient, and how you just set it up here when you're doing your problems. And if you can't think through it in hand, at least this is a good way of laying it out and determining what your depreciation charges are here. So again, remember this partial period here. We had this we started a depreciation here on October 1st here at 20x1, and we had to consider a whole years here. So we had some overlapping of the years, and we have to determine it. We have to divide it up here, this whole year, based on what we're going to depreciate here in the date of purchase here. Say, for example, here we had, just say on June, we had 6 months of depreciation here in 20x1. So then we would just have taken 6 divided here by, instead of 3 months, we would say we had 6 months here. We would divide here 6 into 12. We would have got up 50% here for 20x1. And then the remaining 6 months here would have been for 20x2, or 50%. So you can see our example here. First, we had to determine our full year's depreciation based on our fiscal year here that we had, and that's where we actually use the sum of years digits here. So let's just go up and look at that one more time up here. And for our sum of years digits, just assuming, if again this is based on our beginning of the January 1st date here, depreciation, and you really have to start with this here when you're trying to divide up between those partial periods here. So we determine what our depreciation base was. That was our cost here less our salvage value. That's our depreciation base. That's what we're going to depreciate. And then we had a remaining life. So we started out with 8 years, and we just work our way on down to 1 year here. And then our depreciation fraction, that was simply the remaining life here divided by the sum of the years here. And the sum of the years was just the we went through for 8 years of life. We had to add up 8 years plus 7 years plus 6 years on down here until we gave up the total amount here of 36 years. Or we could have just used this little equation here. N, just remember that N times N plus 1 divided by 2 here. And that gives you the, your denominator here for your depreciation fraction. And the numerator is easier to remember. That's just your remaining life here. And then you would just take that here times your depreciation base, and you get your depreciation expense. And then from there you can see we had to divide it up for our partial periods here between whenever we purchased it here during a year. What would get charged for the first year, and then the remaining amount here would go into the second year based on whatever how we divide up our partial periods.